Hi, it's Jackie. I'm here with big news. The Grown Ass Woman's Guide will be back in January with all new episodes. Until then, I'm sharing some best of episodes created just for you. Have a very happy, healthy holiday season, and I will talk with you in January. You walk into someone's house, you open the door, and you stand there. What are you noticing?
I notice immediately, how am I feeling? People have this preconceived notion, I think you walk into somebody's house and you immediately start critiquing like what they did and what would you do differently. I don't think like that, but I am somebody who's very sensitive to energy. And I like to say our home is a feeling state. So I walk into somebody's house and I immediately gauge how this is making me feel.
This is the Grown Ass Woman's Guide. I'm your host and guide, Jackie McDougall. Grown-ass women are notorious for getting it all done, especially when under pressure. And that's never been more true than during the holiday season. But what if this year we took care of ourselves first? It's no secret that we give better when we feel better. And Kindra is all about helping us feel our best selves, mind and body. Give yourself the gift of Kindra's science-backed products, education, and community to help you thrive through the holidays. Don't we all deserve that? Get 20% off at ourkindra.com with promo code GAW20. That's ourkindra.com, promo code GAW20. Before we dive into today's much-needed episode, I wanted to share a little something happening over at grownasswoman.guide. Our holiday gift guides are packed with ideas for the grown-ass woman on your list. And if that includes yourself, no judgment here. Gifts for the active woman, the career-focused entrepreneur, and a few self-care splurges that will bring joy to your world. Visit grownasswoman.guide for more. Happy shopping. Welcome to part 4 of the Grown Ass Woman's Guide to Thriving Through the Holidays. As we finish off 2021, millions of people are talking resolutions, making shifts and changes in their lives. Not a big fan of resolutions. We all know what happens 5 days, a week later. But I am a big believer that there is a fresh opportunity to invigorate our lives in the new year or set some goals, and no better place to start than at home. Carrie Leskowitz is a certified life coach and award-winning interior designer with over 20 years experience transforming both spaces and lives. In this episode, Carrie shares tips to help create a more aligned space simply and inexpensively. And she shares what not to do if you want more love, peace, and abundance in your life. What are some mistakes some of us might be making when you first walk in that makes you feel like, oof, this is not the greatest space?
I think generally speaking, a lot of us live in our home, we put something down and it stays there for 10 years. And I think we forget to really see our environment. And you can gain a wealth of information by doing this exercise. I call it seeing with new eyes. So if you were to walk into your front door as if you were a guest in your home, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? How would you feel when you walk through the threshold? And then go from room to room, really assessing. Does this reflect my authenticity? Does this tell somebody who I am and what I value? Do I love this? Is it in good repair? So I think it's more about sharing the story of you, but in a really healthy, authentic way.
Absolutely. And you just nailed something too. And you said you walked in, you put something down, and 10 years later, it's still there. So your work as a life coach and myself working with clients, I'm constantly encouraging them to be who they are today.
Right.
Not holding them to who they were 10 years ago. We're like, do the work. And then you walk into somebody's house and it hasn't been touched in 20 years. Do you think that it's possible to get unstuck in your life if your space looks exactly the same?
No, simply no. It's like what that definition of insanity, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over.
Expecting a different outcome.
Exactly. I think that a lot of us hold on to things for unhealthy reasons, and we all do it. The closet is such a hotbed of information. When I go into somebody's closet, I hate to say it now because I would like to think that I have become a little more evolved, but our fat clothes and our thin clothes and,
totally.
And how we're not accepting ourselves where we are right now. And especially as we age and things change, there's a lot of resistance around, moving into like another chapter, or when we have a transformation in our lives,
right?
And then reflecting that, we tend to hold on to a past that isn't relevant anymore. And that does show up in our house for sure.
I think sometimes we are trying to get back. We maybe connect it to a happier time.
Yeah.
And so then we surround ourselves, but we need to move on.
Exactly.
And so how do we do that?
Awareness. And that is like the biggest change agent. When you learn awareness, you learn if there's an area in your house that you immediately know needs to be changed, or if it feels heavy, or you're dissatisfied in some way, but maybe you don't know exactly what it is, or you're triggered. I call it messages in the mess. If we have work that we need to be done, oftentimes it does show up. It can show up as clothes that we're hanging on to in our closet, piles that we can't get through, boxes. It could be, a myriad of things. So it's really a matter of becoming aware of where you are now, how you're feeling, and how something makes you feel. And once you pinpoint that, then I believe getting to the root cause of why it's making you feel this way or how this clutter accumulated. Once you become aware, you begin to learn what the root cause is, then you can dissolve it and move on in a healthier way.
I love that. And you're not talking about having a pristine, like museum type house. You're just talking about not hanging on to stuff that no longer serves you. Or are you? Should I be cleaning my house?
Well, you should always be cleaning your house. Decluttering, organizing, that's enemy number one. But some people live in like kind of an organized chaos. But what I mean by that is like a lot of color and a lot of pattern. And that is traditionally sort of considered a no-no when you want to create like a calm, sacred space.
Right.
I know for me, I'm not comfortable living with a lot of color and pattern and gallery walls and a lot of things, but some people are. And that brings them joy. And that tells the story of their life and their authentic self. So it's really, again, about knowing who you are, what you value, what fulfills you, being aware, and then decorating accordingly. So clutter, yes, we always have to get rid of clutter.
Right.
But if we have things that make sense to us and bring us joy, and maybe it's a lot for somebody like me, but not a lot for somebody like you, then it's perfectly healthy and okay.
I think that's great because you see a lot of design shows on a variety of channels, and you see a lot of the designing being exactly the same, it feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention any names, but it's similar, right? Each time. So when you walk into a house, it sounds like you are much more in tune with who they are and their personality. You don't just try to like one size fits all the house.
Yes, I try to design in an authentic way. I take time. I get to know my clients because I believe that that's the best way to design for somebody. But you can argue that there are many designers who have signature looks. And when you hire a designer with a signature look, you want that look.
Right.
And that's okay. Then it's your responsibility to take that signature look of the designer and make it your own.
That makes sense.
Or it's the designer's job to say, okay, this is what I do. This is my signature, but like next layer.
Right.
How can I infuse my client's personality into it?
So on the client side, know who you're working with, obviously.
Yes.
Because if your neighbor loves a specific designer and they have a signature look, that's not for you. You'll only be disappointed, basically.
Yes. One of the pet peeves that I've heard is when you use a designer who has a signature look, they use the same things over and over and over. So it begs the question, how is that reflecting me?
Right.
If it's also reflecting my neighbor and the person 3 doors down.
Right.
I wouldn't say don't use the decorator if you love their look, but figure out how to make it your own.
In Carrie's new book, Om for the Home, she's all about decorating a space with your authentic self in mind, so you can achieve Zen inside and out. Let's talk about your book. First of all, the title, I could not love it more. Om for the Home.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Were you into yoga before and meditation and all that before you started designing, or?
Yeah, not really. I was, I was never somebody that did yoga, but I realized we resist sometimes what we really need. And I was kind of like a type A, and I was very hard on myself and resistant about a lot of things.
It's an East Coast girl thing, I think.
Yeah, I can't help it. And I realized in this journey that I was on, a healing journey, a journey of discovery, that I needed to slow down. And one of the best ways for me to do that was to meditate. I had to reduce my stress. I liked yoga, but I always wanted to do cardio. I wanted to burn calories, but I needed it. So I gave it to myself. But when I was researching the book, I was just so fascinated that when I use the word Om, even though it's for yogis and yoga, it's really about the stillness within. So I loved that it was within the word home, because I speak of it as our home, our ultimate vessel, our body, our soul, but also our living environment, because one reflects the other.
Right.
So it was like a perfect, beautiful little metaphor.
And then in the book, you talk about how your home can really impact your mental, physical, and spiritual health. And so I want to tap into physical, because most of my listeners are women over 40. And, we've got our aches and pains, but there are some women with some serious health issues. How would you connect our homes with our physical health?
I can really speak to this from personal experience. I just turned 60. And one of the reasons I wrote the book was because I was an interior designer. Then I became a life coach. Shortly after that, I was sort of undiagnosed with autoimmune disease. And I really had problems. Yeah. And there were many days where I couldn't get out of bed. And I said, well, I can't work. I can't design anymore. What can I do? And that's how the book was born. I said, I can write a book. I have this language now, and I see this connection. But when I was laying in bed and I was thinking and researching, I was looking at a TV in my armoire across the room, because 20 years ago or 15 years ago, we put TVs in armoires.
Right.
And I'm not like every client, and I opened my armoire doors and I'm seeing a mismatched sock and some dust and a cassette deck. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I wouldn't do this for anybody.
Right.
This is not okay anymore. I had stopped seeing it. I was busy. I was doing other things, but now.
So focused on everyone else.
And I said, okay, no. And I bought a new TV and I bought a beautiful sideboard. So for those days that I couldn't get out of bed, I didn't heal myself physically, but emotionally, I made that experience better. So I had a big TV. I didn't have to keep putting my glasses on and off. I wasn't looking at mismatched socks and weird stuff behind the doors. Now it was a beautiful environment with beautiful things set on a sideboard. So I was happier when I was there. I felt less like stuck, like I was being a little proactive, even though it didn't affect my physical health, it affected my emotional health.
Right.
And because I was emotionally feeling a little bit better about sitting in bed, having like a better TV viewing experience, it sort of got me through those days, maybe a little less depressed.
Your mental health and emotional health is absolutely directly tied to your physical health.
100%.
So sometimes that's all we have, is to start making tweaks to the emotional and the mental.
You're absolutely right. Studies suggest that our emotional health, our mental health, they're all tied together. And when we can take control of one small thing, it's empowering. I was down for the count at that point in time. And I had lost my dad and I was grieving.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It was a dark time, but I kept going. I was my own health advocate. I went to doctor after doctor. I went to integrative medical doctors. I went to traditional doctors. I went to a Chinese herbalist. I didn't stop. I was diagnosed with everything from Lyme disease to psoriatic arthritis.
Wow.
I went on and off medication, and I'm so much better. But I still have challenges and I still have flares. And I guess I'm kind of learning to live with it.
Mm.
I'm definitely somebody who's always proactive. And I look at what can I control?
Right.
And if it's a day that I'm not feeling great, okay, I need to pivot. But I think, again, you always have to ask yourself, how do I feel? What can I do? And then act accordingly to create every experience the best it can be, even in challenging moments.
Right.
You know, I worked with somebody who had lupus and autoimmune disease is on the rise. And I really took a look at toxins in our home and making things easier if you have mobility issues. There's a lot of little things you can do. And I think when you take control of that, you feel better because you've done something.
Right.
It's empowering to just take like baby steps.
To feel hopeful and not hopeless.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you work with clients, as far as your life coaching goes, how much of the advice you're giving, or at least the coaching you're doing, is connected to their homes specifically?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually you call me in to help you design. And as you get to know somebody, you might see, you know, that area of dissatisfaction or the message in the mess. And I will say to somebody, you know, I see something here. Do you want to look at this? Do you want to coach around it? And sometimes they say, oh my God, absolutely. And sometimes they say, no, I'm not interested. And that's okay, because you have to meet people where they are. And if they want to explore it, we'll do coaching around it. If they don't, we move on. No pressure. But I'll mention it. And then, you know, sometimes people will think about it. They'll come back to it, or they're not interested and you move on.
Right.
Nobody's really come to me and said, I want to coach for coaching's sake. And then we happen to go into their home.
Right. They come for the home and the bonus is the coaching.
Right. I mean, that's my niche. I knew going into life coaching that I wasn't going to talk about your business. I wasn't going to talk about how you could be more entrepreneurial. I wasn't going to talk about trauma. They do come up when I coach somebody.
Right.
But that's not my niche.
Right. So when you meet someone and you're going through their home, what are some of the common, maybe emotional, mental challenges they're going through? And what is the home remedy that's connected to it?
I would say everybody's different, but a unifying kind of universal thing is clutter. When people have just a lot of overwhelm in their life, they're overextended, they're people pleasers, they try to do too much. I've noticed people who have like a lot of drama-filled relationships also tend to have clutter. I don't talk too much about clutter in the book because other people have covered that. It's definitely connected, but I was more interested in the mental part. Just like a lot of chatter in your brain also equates to a lot of stuff in your house. Or if you don't put yourself first and value yourself, you might allow your house to fall into disrepair in some way, like you're just not paying attention to it.
Right. Do you ever find the opposite as true? Like somebody who has no clutter, everything is perfect and in its place, and they still have stuff that they need to work through in life?
Yes, because then they're just in denial.
But seriously, like, do they use that as sort of like that's their control? I mean, we have people with eating disorders or other things where we find something in our lives to control when we feel out of control.
Yes. I worked with somebody who had OCD. They can control the state of their home, but they can't control the state of their mind or, you know, their relationships, any kind of extreme. It's really about finding balance and flow.
Right.
And having a healthy balance. We all feel that way. We all feel out of control. We all feel overwhelmed. but we try to bring ourselves back to equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the key. It's not about always having a pristine home or always having like a really healthy body. Like we all will indulge. It's about bringing ourselves back to where we know is our healthiest place.
Right. I love the word flow. You can connect it to money too, right? Like it goes out and it goes in. And then sometimes when you meet somebody and they're like, I'm not going to spend a dime. And then they don't have any money because they're just not letting the flow happen, right? I've done a lot of money mindset work in the last few years.
I tell this story and it's my own personal story. I am in this house with my second husband who moved in, and he would put the mail on the kitchen counter. And I come into my house through my kitchen. And I would always walk into my house through the kitchen door, and there would be the mail. Now, it's just mail, but I saw bills. I had a lack mindset around money, and I know where it comes from. I'm very clear about it. And I realized that I was immediately at that time becoming triggered the minute I walked into my kitchen, because I saw the mail and my brain went to money, bills, lack, how are we going to pay the bills? And I was crazed. So the message in that mess said, I have some work to do around the energy of money.
Right.
Because, everything is energy. So I knew that I had work to do. And I also expressed to my husband that this was a little bit of a trigger for me. I was going to work on my money mindset, but would he please put the mail in the other room? And he did, and I did, and we overcame it.
Right.
So yeah, everything is like energy too. So what's the energy?
That's a great story because, when you walk into your house and you feel stress and overwhelm, what is it that you're looking at first and foremost? Is that where you have your pile of bills? Is that where you have shoes everywhere? We used to have shoes right at the front door, and I don't know, just chaos, and it's so much better now that we have a mudroom in this house and the kids throw their backpacks and their shoes or whatever in there. And at least I can close the door.
Yeah.
And so it's much better.
I was working with somebody and they had that, everybody has that problem. So we just got a big basket and the kids learned there was no mudroom. Throw your shoes in the basket. So you don't walk in and start feeling like you're being stopped by physical things in your way.
Right.
Or there's chaos right when you walk through the door.
Absolutely. So how does your work differ from like feng shui or any of those modalities?
I would say it doesn't. There's feng shui in the book because when you talk about energy, you have to talk about feng shui.
Absolutely.
It's all energy.
Yeah.
So I really think about that. I don't call myself a feng shui practitioner, although I might get certified in it next. We'll see.
It's so fascinating.
It's so fascinating. But there is, I believe, an intuitiveness when you are energy sensitive, which I am. There's an intuition when I help somebody decorate because I immediately think about the energy in a home, the placement of things. So again, I think about that when I'm bringing things together.
Right. I love that. So let's just say you walked into my listener's home and you noticed a few things. What are some easy fixes she can make, small baby steps to shift the energy in her home?
I would say go back and do that exercise that I talked about in the beginning, seeing with new eyes.
Yes.
Walk in your front door, if that's the door you normally don't use, as if you're a guest. Ask yourself, how does this make me feel? What does my foyer or entrance look like? Is it light and bright? Does it tell someone who I am? Does it feel welcoming? Is there a mirror or a place for keys or, flowers that say welcome? Go from room to room, go into every corner, clap your hands, play some music, change the energy, move some things around. Sometimes just moving tchotchkes around can make a difference. Does everything make sense? Sometimes we put something down, like I said, like a collection of things. Somebody gave you a gift 10 years ago and you put it down and there it sits.
Right.
Do you love it? Does it represent you? If not, thank it. let it go, like Marie Kondo says.
Right.
Is everything in good repair? Is the paint still vibrant? Do you have any leaks? Are your windows clean? Your windows are the eyes of your house. The entrance is the mouth of the house. That's where energy is coming and going. You don't need to make like big changes. Just really pay attention to what you're saying and how you're living.
Sometimes you walk into a house and there's so much stuff. It's not that it's cluttered necessarily, but there's like figurines and just so much. And that, I know for me, creates a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah, I totally get anxiety when I go into friends' homes and they just have so much stuff. Whatever, they love it. I have a friend who has a brother who was a dumpster diver.
Oh, wow.
And he would make art out of things that he found in the trash. And his home was like a living museum of stuff. I ran out of there like in a sweat. Like I could not handle it. But again, for him, it gave him so much joy.
Right.
So who am I to say you shouldn't do that? I just had to limit my time.
Absolutely.
But we do often just live with too much. So I think, again, just being intentional. Do I love it? Does it serve my higher power? Does it mean something? Is it useful? If not, let it go. I think a lot of the calm is between things. Like Coco Chanel used to say, look at yourself in the mirror before you walk out the door and take off one thing. If you can just like take one thing away at a time,
right?
See how you feel. Oh, how am I feeling? Do I feel like I have a little more space? Am I feeling a little more? Take one more thing away.
Right.
And see how you feel. Just keep asking yourself.
Yeah. I know that for me and for plenty of women I've talked to, there's like that family item, whether it's a piece of furniture or decor, artwork or something that we don't necessarily love in our house, but we feel sort of guilty for letting go of that. What would you say to that?
I am not somebody who keeps anything I don't love.
I love that.
If you feel obligated, but you don't love it, I would say, how can you handle this in a way that makes you feel comfortable and maybe the people who gave it to you? So if it's, your mother or kid or whatever, and they're coming into your home a fair amount, could you take it away and put it back? Could you put it amongst things that you do love? So maybe now it's not a focal point. How can you handle it so you can live with it if you must?
Right.
That's the key. Oftentimes we think we must, but we don't have to.
Right. Isn't that interesting? We've often been told by someone else for whatever reason that we in our lives must A, B, and C. And for some reason, we don't necessarily question that. We just go along with it. Maybe we were told it as a young person. Maybe we feel guilty and we don't even want to think about it. But do you challenge your clients to really think about some of the things that they believe are musts in your work?
Always. Always.
I'm sure they love it and hate it all at the same time.
Love designer coach. I always do. I mean, I don't mince words, and sometimes people respond well and sometimes they don't.
Right.
But if our home is a reflection of our authenticity and our soul, if something is there that isn't fulfilling us or our higher self or our idea of ourself, then why are we living with it? Are we doing it for somebody else? And if we are, why? What does that say about us?
Right.
Because it's our space. It's the only thing we have, our home, our body, and our living environment that we can control.
So true. And so you go in, you work with your clients, you make some changes in the house. What kind of personal shifts have you seen by shifting their homes?
I mean, most people have said, oh my God, this feels so much better. Or, I'm seeing this thing for the first time. I think like a clarity or an abundance is the reward of letting go of things, shifting things around. For example, somebody who was newly divorced, their wife took half the furniture and they were living like in a half empty house. And I said, you're not half of what used to be a whole. Let's make a smaller seating arrangement. Let's add a few things. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you need to have the look of completion. There's always things we can do to shift energy, shift our perspective, tell people who we are, and live with things that bring us joy and live in a joyful way.
Yeah. you nailed it. This is something we have control of. And the fact is, you didn't say, buy more things to that man to fill that space. You said, make it a smaller sitting area. And that makes perfect sense. There are plenty of people every day getting a divorce who maybe have half the furniture. Like, what can that seating area look like? Maybe it becomes a reading nook. Just rethinking that area versus having a fraction of what is necessary for it to be what it once was.
Right. Ideally, if you could buy a few things, great. But there's trauma involved.
Yeah.
And there's a process that you need to go through emotionally. And some people don't know where they're going to end up. So they're hesitant to buy anything. I totally get that.
Right.
So take the furniture away from the wall and put it in the center of the room, anchor it. You're going through something. Your home should reflect that.
Okay. If you're in the middle of something, it's okay that your home is not perfect because it's also transitioning with you.
Exactly. And how can you make it the best it can be during this transition?
Before you start throwing things out and moving things around randomly, it's important to acknowledge that, like everything we do in our lives, healing and love and acceptance and moving forward, it all starts from within.
Everything that I do is like, know thyself. So if you haven't done the deeper work, it's never too late. And I don't care what age you are. I wrote a book at 60.
I love it.
So I'm just all about, you can start this journey anytime. And sometimes things crop up from our past, in our 30s and our 40s and our 50s, and we have to go back and sometimes do the work over and over, but really go inward. Be still, listen to that voice and trust it, because I don't think it ever really takes us in the wrong direction. I think more often than not, we just don't listen to it.
Absolutely. I would go so far as to say that maybe if you did that work at 30 or 40, you weren't who you are today. Like, we have so much experience and so much knowledge. And they always say youth is wasted on the young, right? Like, to do the work now, not like, oh, we're too old to do the work. It's even more transformative because of who we are now.
Yes, I am such a different person now than I was 10 years ago. And it's helped me in so many ways. And certainly the aging process, which is hard. It is so hard, I think, for me. Keep coming back to myself and my values and always asking, like, what fulfills me? How do I want to live? What are the types of things I want to live with within my home and outside of it? The people, the functions. To me, it's all the same. It's all connected. So by constantly asking myself that, I always make the best choices for me.
I love that. That's the key right there. Make the best choice for you, not for someone else. If that's historically what you've done, that day is done. We're over that.
Wherever you are, stop that.
Exactly. Today is the day, because you walk into a home of someone maybe who got a divorce, or maybe they lost even a spouse. And after a while, it sort of shifts to who they are. And you start to see who that person is. And maybe they didn't even know for quite a while. I mean, I'm married. Marriage can be great, but at the same time, we can sometimes lose what it is that we want in our lives and in ourselves. And so using your home to reflect your personality is a great way to kickstart that.
Right. And it's a process, like life, like our journey.
Yeah.
Houses aren't stagnant. They're living, breathing energy. And it changes. As you change and evolve, your home should change and evolve.
Absolutely. How do you have a new relationship in a home that was so tied to somebody who used to live there?
Believe me, it was challenging. And my present husband, it's been like 26 years already. He just was like perfectly happy. He didn't need anything. I redecorated a little, but we didn't have the money to like change everything.
Right.
But oh, how I suffered. And that's really what led me to life coaching. I felt stuck and I wanted to get unstuck. I wanted tips and tricks and tools. And therapy didn't do it for me. I was able to make peace with this. I still didn't like it, but he needs to stay here. He's a physician in the area. He needed to be near the hospitals. And I just kept saying, I choose him. And so I made the choice. And I did the work internally about how I was viewing my situation in this tract home with no sense of individuality or innate characteristic.
Right.
For somebody who's all about that.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And do you work often with empty nesters? That's got to be another thing when the kids leave the home, that need for individuality and something different and a shift, but also like, you don't want to send that message to the kids like, peace.
Right. Goodbye. I mean, that's like a perfect time. I mean, you are going through a transformation. As a mother, you've taken care of your kids. That's been your job, your goal. And now they're gone. You've done your job. Now back to you.
Yeah.
So many people are like, I don't know what to do next. And it's an opportunity for exploration.
Right. You can build that gym you always wanted in the house.
Exactly. I love that commercial on TV when the kids left and the mom and dad had the sledgehammers. I mean, yes, turn it into something for you.
Right.
Take the time to get to know you again. What does that look like? Women are stumped.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a shame, but look at it as a wonderful opportunity.
I would love to hear about the shifts you are ready to make in your home and your life in 2022. Join the conversation in our free and private Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, review, all of the things with the podcast and share it. I cannot say enough how important it is for women over 40 to share this podcast with each other. I am so honored to create the Grown Ass Woman's Guide for you, and I would love it if you would spread the word. Until next time, please do not forget, you are a grown-ass woman. Act accordingly. Spring has sprung, and with the change of seasons, sometimes comes an increase in vitality. If you're feeling in the mood for a little more personal time, may I suggest Coconut. Coconut is all about providing clean and natural ingredients when you're enjoying your most intimate moments, with or without a partner. Naturally safe products developed by people who are obsessed with quality. Get 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut. That's 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut.